This offseason, the Jaguars have made moves via free agency, and so too has the other teams within the AFC South Division, with the Houston Texans showing they're in win-now mode. I went one-on-one with ESPN's NFL and college football analyst Booger McFarland to discuss it all.
Glad to be here, man. What's happening?
Let's start with the offensive line. The Jaguars' offensive line struggled last year with injuries, etc. They had issues protecting Trevor Lawrence, opening holes for Travis Etienne. They added Mitch Morse here in the offseason. What does the addition of Morse mean for the O-line? And are there a couple of prospects you think the Jaguars should target to add depth?
Well, from a center standpoint, it's stability. And I think when you look at the connection between he and Trevor and what they're going to try to build, it just brings stability to the middle of your offensive line. It's like a point guard in basketball. Like, he's the guy that runs the show. He sets the protections. He makes sure everybody's in position. He makes sure that the line is sliding the right way. And I think he can build a bond between he and the quarterback, a guy that's a veteran guy that's been there and done that. This is a rich offensive line draft from a tackle standpoint. And I think that if you're the Jaguars, you have to say, okay, do we need to upgrade? Yeah, Cam has been good for a minute, but do we need to upgrade and say we need to get a younger tackle? What is it? Harrison, I think they drafted out of Oklahoma. So you got a young tackle. Do you need another one? I think you can never have enough good quality offensive linemen. There's some guys that will be available there at 17, a guy that can play tackle, a guy that can play guard. You look at Fuaga from Oregon State, Patanu from Washington, a guy like Tyler Guyton from Oklahoma. You look at Amarius Mims from Georgia. I think if we're going to be honest, we're waiting on Trevor to kind of take that next step. You want to make sure that he's got everything around him, and the offensive line, I think, is paramount.
Let's talk about Trevor Lawrence taking that next step. Doug Peterson saying this offseason that he really wants Trevor to take command of the offense. This is year 3 for him in Peterson's system. It will be this fall. What does taking command of the offense look like from your perspective? And does he have the personnel around him to be able to do that?
Well, I think he's in a position now where I think he has a quarterback-friendly coach, and Doug has proven that he's going to put the quarterback in really, really optimal positions to succeed. And so I think taking the next step means, man, just being in control, dictating what the defense does, not allowing the defense to dictate to you, being in command, being a step ahead, understanding how the offense works forward and backwards, and making sure that you always put your team in a position that you don't take negative plays. That's just being in command. And by now, the game should slow down enough where Trevor can do that. I think Trevor's in a very unique position because he was kind of the last of the generational prospects. He was a generational quarterback. But what does that look like? Because we've seen other quarterbacks that weren't generational. Now they're looking like superstars, and Josh Allen and Justin Herbert. So we're waiting on the generational guy to look like those guys. And so I think there's some pressure from that point. I think he was hurt with Christian Kirk being hurt last year. And so now you look at Ridley's now gone to Tennessee. Do they need another wideout? Does he need a legit number one guy that he can say, okay, that's my go-to guy? Because I thought he took steps last year with Ridley. Does he need another guy that can take that step? I get it. Gabe Davis was not a number one in Buffalo. Gabe was a 2. So does he need a legit bona fide number one? I think that's going to be something that Jacksonville has to answer, and Trent Baalke and Doug have to figure that out.
Let's talk about one of those quarterbacks that coming out was not considered a generational guy, but boy, did he have a generational season last year in C.J. Stroud, defending AFC South champs. He did wonderful work over there. He's added, meaning Houston, they've added a number one in Stephon Diggs to go along with Nico Collins and Tank Dell. Yeah. The Jaguars lost some veterans in the back. They released Rayshon Jenkins and Darius Williams. They did add Darnell Savage and cornerback Ronald Darby. Also, as you said, picked up Calvin Ridley via free agency. What do we need in this secondary to be able to cover just the top receivers within our own division?
Well, it's from a secondary standpoint, like the cornerback position needs to be addressed. Just because when you look to your point, initially C.J. Stroud has been outstanding. I think he was better than advertised. Some people might say right now he's the best quarterback in that draft. I think it's premature. I think it's a little early to say that. Let's wait until after year 3 before we can make that declaration. But you got to be able to cover on the outside. I think that's going to be key. Can you line up and play man-to-man in these systems? Can you line up and figure it out? You know, Darius Williams is no longer there. Rashawn Jenkins, those guys are gone. And so you got to be able to make sure that you got young guys that can come along. I get it. I like Darby, but do you have young guys that can run and can be out there in the AFC on that Autobahn in the AFC with the Tyreeks and with these other guys and Devontae Adams that are in the AFC? You got to be able to do it. And so I think not only is Jacksonville looking for a corner like that, I think Indianapolis is looking for a corner. That's another team that's got to get faster. They need a speed guy on the outside that can turn and run, and they feel good putting in man-to-man situations.
All right, I'll wrap up with this. Last year, week 13, 8-3, Monday Night Football, playing Cincinnati in prime time. We win that game. We have the best record in the AFC. Losing in overtime. Trevor Lawrence was injured in that game. He was injured down the stretch. At one point, you guys, even on ESPN, were saying at the beginning of the season, the Jaguars could be legit Super Bowl contenders. With all of that said, the season went downhill, one of the most disappointing in the franchise's history. Do you believe the 2024 version of the Jacksonville Jaguars will be a relevant, strong team in the AFC this fall?
Yeah, I do, because I trust the coach. I trust how he builds a football team. I've known Doug a long time. Doug's a Louisiana boy. I've been knowing him a long time. I like where they're at. I like the new defensive coordinator in Nielsen. I like him. I like where they're headed. Now they got to get some of this talent to take to take the next step. Can they draft well? How do you become really good and consistent? Is you got to stack good offseason on top of good offseason on top of good offseason. And so now if you're Jacksonville, they got to hit this draft. Get another influx of talent in there. Get these young guys. Takes a little luck. You got to stay healthy. Your quarterback has got to be healthy. Your offensive line has got to be healthy. Can you get the playmakers to step up and be consistent? Josh Allen had a career year last year. Okay. Can he follow that up? Doesn't have to be a career year, but we don't need you to go from whatever it was, 17 sacks to 7. Like, we need you to go 17, 13, 15. Like, you got to be consistent in who you are, not just in a position that you can capitalize on a quote-unquote contract season. So, yeah, I think they can.